Anybody finished the book or read the book yet? I finished it in 2 days. I couldn't put it down. I was like, either watch Love is Blind or read this book. Like, I would read this book. But let's just start with how this is your 15th book.
Yeah.
In your 25th year of writing. That's a major accomplishment. And congratulations again on this new book coming out. But I do have a story for you. So I met this guy. His name is Theo. He is a location scout for film and TV. You all know what that is. He lives in LA, so you all know that. So he travels to exotic places, and so I don't see him all the time, but he loves me. I know he does, because when he comes back from these location scouts, he brings me all kinds of gifts. He's tall, dark, and handsome, says all the right things, tells me he loves me. And in fact, we're engaged after just a few months of dating. He has a lot of money because he owns a house in LA. He just sold it. The funds are just taking a little time. So I'm just spotting him right now. But he's so generous, and he tells me he's going to pay me back any day. And he's like investing in like AI and stuff. So, he's going to be worth a lot of money. What do you think about him?
That is the best introduction to any of these events that I have done over the last 5 days. I just want to first of all say thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. This is my last night on a 5-stop whirlwind tour across the States that I've done with my sister, who's at the back. She came with me to help me figure out this whole tour. It's been amazing. I've met so many brilliant readers and been to so many great bookshops. But my heart is always in LA because I lived here for a long time. I love coming back. It feels like a home, and it's just so nice to be here. So thank you for coming.
Welcome home.
And I love that story. I love that story.
Are you supporting the love that we have?
It's the love that you have. Yes. Yeah, I love the fact that that you're spotting him, and he's got this amazing house. And so that's the romance fraudster in my book. That's the guy. So I met this guy, and I think that's how so many stories start. Hopefully they're not romance fraudsters, but in this book they are. He's a con man, and my character Maggie falls in love with this con man, and he steals her heart, a home, a self-esteem, and she ends up with nothing. And that's how you meet her at the beginning of the book.
It sure is. So romance scams, who's familiar with romance scams? Anybody see Tinder Swindler on Netflix? Yeah. Some interesting stats for you. According to the Federal Trade Commission, romance scams cost over $1.14 billion in reported losses in the U.S. in just 2023 alone. Roughly 1 in 7 Americans have experienced financial loss from online dating scams. And in the UK, it's 1 in 8. So in the first quarter of last year, 2025, romance scams were up 20% year on year. What inspired you to write about a romance scam story?
I kept reading about romance scams. I kept hearing them on the news. I'd turn on the breakfast TV. I'd be in the car driving. I'd be listening to podcasts, and just more and more I was hearing about women, generally women, who have met men, and not just online. They've met guys, and they have been scammed. They're con men. And it seemed to be women that had sort of been divorced, or they'd lost a parent, or they were feeling particularly vulnerable. And these men would sort of wheedle into their lives, love bomb them, say that I'd not even heard these words, love bombing, breadcrumbing. It was all this kind of stuff. And they sort of love bomb these women, and they just think, wow, they've met the love of their life. And then it turns out that they would, they are so manipulative. They would come up with these crazy stories. They were location scouts, because they always have to travel away, because they're often doing a few women at once. One I read about, someone was a fireman. He'd actually bought the fireman's outfit on eBay and would stick it over a fire pit so that when he came home, he smelled of smoke. And we were just saying earlier, like, who has the time for this? I mean, I don't hear women doing this. I mean, we're all too busy, but the guys are doing this. And so I was like, this would be a really great story for a novel. So it was, and it's really, I mean, it's a really serious topic. I mean, a lot of the women were saying they haven't just lost all their money, they've lost the guy that they were in love with because he doesn't exist, and they feel like a fool, and they don't want to tell their families. A lot of the police don't take it seriously because they say that, you know, you gave him the money, and they feel ashamed and stupid. Some of them feel suicidal. So it was a really serious topic, but I like to write kind of uplifting, funny stories. And so I took this very serious story of the romance fraud and then built this whole kind of sun-kissed, fun road trip adventure around Europe around this topic.
And I was just telling you before we got started, I have a story for you around a romance scam. My friend was scammed by a guy who pretended to have cancer. And she would go to chemo treatments with him outside the hotel because he would say that no visitors would be allowed. And he shaved his head. He would fake fainting, puking, all of it. And what he was really doing was preying on people's empathy. You know, there were 3 women that she found out who were all taking him to chemo and paying for treatments because they felt the need to support him. But something that I think is so brilliant in your book is that it's not about the romance scam.
No.
And the guy is not at the center of the story. We've completely decentered the guy. This is about an intergenerational female friendship and an adventure across Europe to some of my favorite cities. So why did you choose to take the spotlight and really shine it on this intergenerational connection that these 2 women have?
Just going back to your cancer story, I met a woman in, I think we were in Boston, and she took me aside and told me that her friend had been scammed by a guy that was having cancer treatment. So
Maybe it's the same guy.
That is obviously kind of a story that they say. But anyway, I decided that I'd like to write books where they're called romantic comedies, but as I've got older, the guy has kind of been decentered. So when I was younger, I was always like, the girl has to meet the guy, and then once they've got together, the book ends and it's all, you know, really nice. And then as I got older, I became less interested in that. And I was a bit like, there's a bit more about life than finding the guy. And so this book, even though they're trying to find the guy, what they're really doing is trying to find themselves. And so I have them on this kind of crazy chase, but these 2 women, and Maggie is the woman who's been scammed. She's about to turn 50. And a young journalist called Flick, who's in her 20s, who's desperate for a big break. She lives in a small town. It's really boring. All she's covering are things like pole dancing pensioners and fundraisers. And she hears gossip in the town about this woman that's been scammed. And she's like, this could be my big break. And so she convinces her to go with her to find this guy because she's found out where he is, because she's kind of really hot on social media. She's been looking at all the Instagram accounts and she's like, I think I know where he is. So they go together and they start in Monte Carlo and he slips the net. And then from Monte Carlo, this whole crazy 2-week trip across Europe happens where they're trying to find him. But really, these 2 women who are so different end up really finding themselves. And that's what's really interesting to me.
I felt like it was very Thelma and Louise, but with different ages between the 2 women. And I also found it so brilliant, again, that I was able to see myself in all of the characters that you described. Obviously, as a 45-year-old, I saw myself in Maggie. But at the younger woman, Flick, I was like, you know, I remember being so ambitious and wanting to do the right thing at that age, having the energy to wanting to do the right thing. And then later in the book, you'll discover an older character named Birdie. My ring is in honor of Bertie. We read the book. She's in her 90s, and I saw myself in her too. I aspire to have this confidence at an age where you just don't give a fuck. So, but midlife is a theme that you love writing about, especially women in their midlife. Why do you think it's important to write about women characters in their midlife journey?
A few years ago, I wrote a book called Confessions of a 40-something Fuck-Up. And at the time I wrote that book, my publishers were a little nervous that they were nervous because it had a swear word, but they were nervous that it had the word 40-something in there and that it would alienate younger readers, not realizing that really a lot of people that read books are in midlife. And so I wrote this book, and actually it just really took off. It sold a lot of copies. They made a TV show, and they realized that actually life does not stop because you get to 40, because you get to 50, because you get to 60. It really doesn't. In fact, you've done a lot of interesting stuff. You've learned a lot. You're still relevant. You're still doing things. Often at that stage in your life, if you've got kids, they've gone to college, you're wondering what you're going to do next. If you don't have kids, you're still thinking, okay, I'm at this age now. I can't mess around. Time is ticking. What am I going to do? And so that was really interesting to me, this next stage. I did an event with another 3 writers, and we were all of the same age, and they were saying, what do you want to call this event? And I was like, what about the best is yet to come? Because I do think for me, the best is yet to come. I've had the biggest success in my career after the age of 50. It's not like there's some big dead end. So that's who I want to write about. That's what I think is interesting. And then because Confessions of a 40-something Fuck-Up was so successful in England, suddenly all these midlife books started to appear. And now it's become like, I'm not saying I set the trend, but definitely more and more and more, we're seeing a lot of books about older women. And I love books about older women. I just read The Correspondent, which I loved, which is about an older woman. It's interesting. And so, in this book, I have a character, Birdie. She's older. She's funny. So that's what interests me, and I think it interests a lot of other people as well.
I want to read this excerpt from your book, and everybody just take a deep breath because you're going to feel this. There is a moment in every woman's life when she reaches a point, when a mixture of tiredness, desperation, hormones, having seen it all, and years spent pleasing everyone, together with the enormous amount of shit she's had to put up with, causes the dam to break. It's a powerful moment. It's often felt. It's also often fleeting, which is a shame because if women could hold on to it, they would truly rule the world. Explain to us what this is about. Why do you feel that way?
I just do think for every woman, there is a moment in your life, and it could be in a small situation, or in this book, it's Maggie's on this trip around Europe, and it's she's kind of lost everything. She's at rock bottom, and she has reached that moment, and it is a watershed moment. I think it really is a watershed moment where you stop giving.
You can say it,
and you really do. And I think from that moment onwards, it's a really empowering moment. And like I said, if we could all, when I was in my 20s, I was so worried about everything, and I was so anxious, and I was always trying to please everybody. And I just wish if we could all reach that moment and hold on to it as well, that we could truly rule the world, because look around us at what's going on.
Yeah, this book was needed because of what's going on right now. What about this idea of being an al dente person? You have this description in the book about being al dente.
So there's a scene in the book where my characters do a cooking class in Sicily. And actually, there's 2 people in the audience tonight that told me about this cooking class in Sicily. And I went with a girlfriend to research this book. And we did this cooking class. And the woman, I was messaging her on my phone, and I was like, wow, her English is amazing. And she was messaging back, and we messaged back and forwards. And then when she picked us up in the car, I realized that it had been Google Translate, and she couldn't speak a word of English, and I couldn't speak a word of Italian. So we go to her house, and we'd arranged the recipes that we were going to we were going to make, and we were making a lasagna. And she was actually quite scary. So we were making the lasagna sheets, and they were not thin enough apparently. And she would kind of almost wrap our knuckles with a rolling pin, and we had to put these sheets of pasta through a machine. And I don't even know the Italian, but basically they were not thin enough, so they had to keep going through this machine. And we made that. And me and my girlfriend, who thought we were going to have this really fun sort of drinking wine, making food, we're just like absolutely terrified in our aprons. In the middle of the Sicilian countryside, aren't you, like doing this cooking class? And anyway, so one of the things that she said is that the pasta had to be al dente, and it has to be kind of not too soft, but kind of firm to the touch. And I thought that's a really interesting metaphor for how you should be as a person, that you can't be too soft and you can't be too sort of a pushover and a bit too wishy-washy. You have to have a bit of bite to yourself. And so in this book, I recreate this scene, and somebody says to my character, you have to be al dente. And that's where the idea came from. I think it's kind of it's a good metaphor for life.
I want that on a t-shirt. Yeah. I identify as al dente. And you mentioned this already. We follow the two women through this European adventure through some of my favorite places like Sicily and Mallorca and Monaco. Why did you choose this as a backdrop?
Well, I love traveling. It's like my big passion in life. And I have written novels before, and I haven't taken my characters anywhere. And I've sat in a bedroom and written, and I'm like, I'm missing a trick here. Why don't I just take them somewhere fabulous and I can go research? And also I was thinking, you know what's going on in the world. It's all a bit scary and depressing. And I want to write a book that's fun and uplifting, and we can go on this fantastic 2-week adventure through Europe in the summer. Because even if you haven't got the money to go on a 2-week adventure, you can read the book and you can sit in your armchair and you're going on this adventure.
I felt like I was on that adventure. Which I truly did. Like, yeah.
And it was like, where do I want to take them? Well, I wanted to take them to a lot of my favorite places and places I haven't been. The research was fun.
I bet.
I called my sister up and said, do you want to come to Monte Carlo? And she's like, yeah, I'll come to Monte Carlo. And so we played roulette in Monte Carlo, and that was in the book. And I created this whole itinerary of the road trip that I would want to take.
There is a cruise in the book, and you haven't been on a cruise yet. So why did you choose a cruise?
I was sitting with another author, and I was telling her about this idea. And I said, they have to chase this con man around Europe, but I'm not sure how to do it. How will they know where he's going to be? And it's going to be a bit too tricky. And she looked at me and she went, put him on a cruise. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to put him on a cruise. And she went, and I've got a contact on a cruise ship. You can go look around this cruise. I'm terrible on boats, can I just say? I'm you put me on a boat and it's a bit like that. I'm like screaming and crying. My sister will attest to this. We went in Monte Carlo on a sightseeing boat. She's taking pictures and I'm at the front screaming. She went, was that you screaming? And I was like, yeah, because you know how it's a bit like that when you're coming out of the harbor. Anyway, so I went and looked around a cruise ship. And so I decided to I'll put the con man on a cruise ship. And so I created this fake cruise.
So brilliant.
Which I haven't yet been on a cruise, but one day.
It's so funny because in the book, they're on this cruise and they go to a captain's dinner. And I did finagle my way into a captain's dinner on a cruise. And I was like, that's me. That's me happening right there.
That's so funny.
Definitely recommend going on a cruise solo. It's so much fun. And it's very healing. So like I said, this is your 15th book, 25th year writing. You first started writing during your lunch break when you had your magazine job. And I'm sure now your writing process is very different. How has your writing process evolved throughout the years?
That's a good question. I started writing in my 20s. Well, do you know what? I was always trying to write books, even as a kid. It was always something I really wanted to do. And then I worked on magazines, which they've all kind of disappeared a bit now. But back in the 90s, they were huge. I worked on magazines. And I was editing a feature about 6 writers that had written their first novel before the age of 30. And so I thought, I'm going to have a go at this. But I had a job. So I would get up in the morning before work. I would work in my lunch hour, work at night, work at weekends, work early in the morning. And I wrote a novel and I got an agent and I sold it. And then they were like, okay, so you've got to write another book now. Well, when you've written one novel, you've thrown all of yourself into this novel. And then when they ask you to do another one, you're like, wow, I've kind of run out of ideas, but you have to write another book. And so that became my full-time job. The first one, I sort of just had an idea. But as it becomes a proper job, you then you have to sort of plan it properly. Otherwise, you would just, well, for me personally, I would be just in a constant state of panic because you have these deadlines. And so I have a whole thing now where I have my office and my friends call me Queen of the Corkboard because I have this huge corkboard. I mean, I remember carrying it home from the shop. It covers the entire wall of a room. Wow. And I plan novels from beginning to end. And I get an idea. I think of the characters. I will know the message and what the ending will be. And then I have to get them from there to there. And I want some twists and some surprises. And I want to keep the person turning the page. And so I kind of think of all those ideas, those scenes. And then every single character, it sounds quite anal, every single character gets a coloured Post-it note because I'm really visual. I have to see things. It's like if I meet someone and they tell me their name, it kind of goes out of my head. But if they write their name down and I see it, I remember. So it's the same with when I'm doing my novel. I have all the characters. They've all got different coloured Post-it notes. And so Maggie in this book was pink, Flick was blue, the fraudster's green. And I put all the scenes all over this corkboard and then I stand back. And when I stand back, I can see I'm too heavy with this character. And there's not enough of this character over there. So I know the pacing's wrong. So then I move all the people around and then I stand back and then I move the scenes around and I stand back. And eventually when it kind of looks how I want it to look visually, then I know that I've got the pacing right and that book is going to work.
Wow.
And that probably takes, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks. And then I start to write. It's not that it might change because sometimes you get into the middle of the book and you think not enough's happening. So you can change it. But for me, I've definitely got the plan. It's like setting off on a road trip. You know, you've planned a 2-week road trip. You know where you're going to go. You know, I've got to get over there. And then if I find this scene difficult to write, I can write any of the other scenes because they're all planned out. So for me, it's a really fantastic tool. And I would say I've done creative writing courses. If you want to write a book, plot the book out. Don't just start writing because you will get disheartened. You will panic. You think I'm never going to finish it and you will lose your enthusiasm. And that's why a lot of people don't write books because they start and they've got a really good idea, but they don't get to the end. And that's what will get you to the end. So that's how I do it.
Really great advice. I published my first book last year and it took about 2 years to write. First of all, it's nonfiction, so I didn't have to use my imagination. And I had a co-writer and it still took us 2 years. And after the book is actually down there, it's called How to Be Dateable. After we finished the book, I looked at her and we were both like, there's no way I can do this again. This took everything out of me. Did you ever have a moment like that? Yeah. You're like, I don't think I could write another book.
No, you do. After you finished a book, I call it the well is empty. The well is empty. You know, you've thrown everything you can think of into that book. You created characters that were strangers at the beginning. And then by the time you finish the book, you know them so well. Yeah. They're like your friends. You've talked to them. I've walked around the house, talked to them. My husband thinks I'm nuts because I'm talking to myself. People have said they've seen me down the street. You know, you're talking to yourself because I am. I'm having conversations because the dialogue's got to be real. There's nothing worse than that kind of dialogue that's not real. People talk you know, when we listen to me talking now, you and you are, and you don't get things right. And so the dialogue's got to sound real. So you have to have those conversations. So when I finished a book, the well is empty. And then you have to have time for that well to fill up. So you've got to have time off. You've got to go out. You've got to travel. You've got to talk to people. You've got to, for sort of, to get more ideas and to get to get more ideas so you can write another book. And I've done 15 now. So I definitely know that you need that downtime. And when I first started writing novels, the publisher wants one a year, which I did, I think 6 or 7 like that. And that is really tough because you're writing a book and then as soon as you finished it, you're editing it and starting another one. There's just no downtime. But as I've got older and I've been able to get longer contracts, I now have bigger gaps between books, which I need because you can't just finish a book and start another novel. I mean, you really need time to think about it.
And this is your first time publishing with Zibby.
Yes.
And it's been a different experience.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us about what's been different about it.
So in America, I've been published by lots of different publishers. A lot of the big 5, HarperCollins, Penguin. And I've had variable success with those publishers. But I did an event with Zibby when she was publishing her book and I was her conversation partner like you are for me. Mm-hmm. And it was really good fun. And I just loved how she had this bookshop. She was really enthusiastic about novels, about connecting readers with authors. She has her publishing company just seemed to work in a different way. They were breaking down the boundaries because they were kind of smaller. It was all female, which I loved. And they just did things differently. And so when I was speaking to her, I said, would you be interested in publishing the book that I'm writing now? A couple of books, actually. And she went, let me read them. And then she came back to me and she went, yeah, absolutely. So this time, this book is published by Zibby, and it's been a totally different experience. It's really collaborative. Everyone's super enthusiastic. They're really creative. And I love that. It's very, because it's a smaller outfit. And they've sent me on this tour. I've met loads of people. It's just been a really great experience. Really, really great experience. And every author I know that's been published by Zibby Publishing has said the same thing.
That's wonderful. It's really wonderful to hear. I want to leave because I want to save some time for Q&A as well. I want to leave everyone with this excerpt from the book. I think it sums up everything you need to know about this book. A lot had happened in the last 24 hours. A proposal, a mugging, a breakup, a fuck up, a curveball, a concussion, a ride in an ambulance with the sirens on, a stolen handbag, a diamond ring, an official statement to the Spanish police, an awkward goodbye with a now ex-boyfriend. You must read this book. It's phenomenal. So many twists and turns and had me laughing and crying at the same time. But we will save some time for Q&A. Does anybody have a question?
Come on, everybody. Put your hand up. Everyone is always so nervous.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen at the back.
So when is your next book?
My next book, I'm actually writing the 3rd in the series of Confessions of a 40-something fuck up. And but Zibby is going to publish in December a book that I wrote a couple of years ago called One Good Thing. That's coming out, and that is a real favorite of mine. That's a book set in the Yorkshire Dales, which I don't know if anyone's seen All Creatures Great and Small. My mum lives in that village, and it's always being filmed there. And so I wrote a book about a woman that gets divorced, and she moves to this village, and she buys a tumble down old cottage, and she renovates this old cottage, and she gets an old scruffy rescue dog. And when she walks around the village, she meets various people. And I remember the idea for the book. I had a title and it was too long. It was called Friends Are Just Strangers That You Haven't Met Yet. And that's the whole idea of the book. It's about, you can bring all these people together that you would never think you were going to be friends with, and they all kind of interact and they all really influence and transform each other's lives. So that's called One Good Thing, and that's coming out in December in the States.
Amazing. It's great. Yes.
I have a question. As you were talking about the relationship of the middle-aged woman and the younger woman, it's interesting because it made me think, I wonder if the middle-aged woman had had the relationship with the younger woman, would she have fallen for the con? Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like that part of your life where you need someone maybe in a different position than you are to say, oh, wait a minute, this guy may not be the real deal. So
Yeah,
that's where I
maybe.
thought you might be, like, I know you map out your stories, so
Yeah.
I just want to give a pitch. If you've never written nonfiction, I don't know if you have, but I just am reading Ann Patchett's The Story of a Happy Marriage.
Oh, okay.
She's talking about her writing process, and so many of us love Ann Patchett, but to have this view of how she puts her stories together and how she thinks about it is really, I find it really inspirational. I'm not a writer, so if you ever think about writing a nonfiction, you might want to write about how you come up
There
with
you
the
go.
story, because it's such a fascinating read to have Ann Patchett talking about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I often think about nonfiction. I mean, a lot of the sort of, I always say about fiction that it's kind of, the characters are fictional, but the feelings are real.
Yes.
And that's why people relate to books, and that's why people feel seen when they read a book, because as an author, I have felt a lot of these feelings. I have experienced a lot of, I mean, I haven't been conned by a con man, but I've definitely dated a guy that has told me one thing and then done another.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
We've all been there.
pretty universal.
Yes.
So, it's that kind of thing. So thank you for your question. Yes, a man. Hello.
A dateable man.
A dateable
Yeah,
man.
not a con man.
Not a con man.
Who are some of the writers that you look up to, that you're influenced by, that inspire you to keep going when you're having a block or whatever?
Wow,
Who are your heroes?
that's a good one.
Living and dead.
I have so many heroes. I grew up a few miles away from where the Brontes lived. So when we were kids, me and my sister, my parents used to take us to the Bronte parsonage, and we used to see the little tiny books that the Bronte sisters used to write to each other. So they were huge heroes of mine. And obviously, Wuthering Heights was a big thing, which funnily enough in England, because of the movie, it's the first time ever that book's got in the Sunday Times bestseller list.
Wow.
Can you believe that? So they were huge, huge heroes to me. A lot of the classics, Jane Austen, moving to the more contemporary stuff. I mean, I really read a lot of stuff. Books that I've just read recently that I would really recommend if no one's read them. The Correspondent, absolutely loved it, couldn't put it down. Was up till 1 o'clock crying at the end. Don't recommend it if you've got to get up somewhere the next day and not have puffy eyes. I read The Wedding People. Thought that was a really fabulous one. That was a really good one. And I'm reading a book right now. It's written by the author, I think, that wrote The Pilgrimage of Harold Pye, but it's called Mrs. Benson's Beetle. I don't know if anyone's read that. It's a really cool book. But I read widely. I read a lot of nonfiction. I've read a lot of the classic American. I mean, there's just so much, so many books that I love. And I get a lot of stuff sent before it's published, quote for. Yeah, you put me on the spot now. There's so many really great books that I'd like to talk about, but I'm of an age where I cannot remember the names of things. And it just goes out of, I mean, I'm clutching at straws for names. I can see covers of books. And anyway, sorry, everybody. I'm 55.
How do you, so you're writing the book, and then you have to, I don't know, have dinner with your husband, go visit your sister. How do you get back into the book? Do you
The
have to
context switching.
read what you wrote
Yes.
to get back into to it.
Yeah, no, it's tough. People think if you're a writer that you can just kind of, I mean, my mum used to do it. She's like, well, you've got an hour.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, an hour? By the time I've opened my laptop and tried to get back into this
Yeah.
world, it's like the hour's up.
Yeah.
I'm not writing a shopping list.
Mhm.
So it is really difficult to get back into that world. And that you need blocks of time, really. I think if I do try write every day. And you sort of, I need at least, I try and do a 3 or 4 hour block, because you need to sort of, if you've just been like doing the laundry and like at the grocery store, I need to come back and sort of reread and get back into that world. Ideally, you have a stretch where you can really get that first draft done. That's often when you kind of lock yourself away. But to be honest, everyone's got life going on and a to-do list. So you do have to just keep trying to do it every day. You do have to try do those little chunks, but it is quite difficult. But I think it's a job. So it's like anything, isn't it? How do people get up my sister works on sets and she's like getting up at 4:30. I'm like, how do you get up at 4:30? Well, if you've got to go to work at 4:30, you've got to get up, haven't you? Same kind of thing. Yes.
Do you have like a discipline, like you have like in your day, do you have a structure? Because it is up to you to do everything that you do for the writing. So could you share how you work your day to be disciplined to get your writing?
It's a job. I work Monday through Friday. I definitely get up, I'm up, I'm at my desk by 9, and I do try write. I used to do it where I'd be like, I'm going to write 9 till 5. You do it right 9 till 5. So I try and get 4 hours in of writing, and I try to write 1,000 words a day. Even if they're not very good, I try and, because it's almost like, it's like you're training. It's like almost like you're training for a marathon. You sort of, you've got to sort of, it's like exercising a muscle. So you have to get so many words down every day. You can always edit them. You can always rewrite them. But the first draft is always the hardest. So I really try get that 4 hours in. But then a lot of the writing is not actually done at your laptop. It's when you're walking the dog, or you're walking around observing, or you're just doing something else, because that's when ideas come to you. It could be reading an article or watching a movie, or I've always got voice notes on my phone or a notebook or post-it notes around, because that stuff is always coming in. I think if you're a writer, you're really observant, and you can get ideas anywhere for stuff. But yeah, you've got to sit in your chair every day and write something, because otherwise you're never going to get a book written. And it is 100,000 words of a book, so it's quite long. But good question, Carrie. Yes.
Yes, I wanted to know, so you had a book like fucked up for you, that was adapted for television?
Yes.
Was it only in America?
So yes, so they made they called it Not Dead Yet here in America, and it was ABC, it was a network show, and they bought the book, and it was set originally, the character in the book I wrote, she left America and she moves back to London. And when America bought it, and Disney or 20th Century made it, they flipped it. So the character comes from London and she comes back to America. And she was an obituary writer in my novel. And what I thought was really cool about the show is that they did it as a sort of half hour, and she writes obituaries, but she could see the dead person, which was a kind of twist on the book. And so it was here in America, but then, and I think you stream on Hulu, but then you can watch it on Disney all around the world.
Well, how did you like the adaptation that they did?
I liked it. It was, somebody said to me really early on in the process that you have to completely separate your novel to the television show or the movie, because if you don't, you're not going to have a good time. You're going to be really precious, and you're going to be saying, oh, it's not like my book, and they've changed it. And so I went into it with my eyes wide open, and I was like, they are making this into a TV show. Absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And I just loved every single bit of it. The actors they chose, the way they, I went on set, they flew me out to LA. There was a character called Cricket. They gave her a wine bar. I just loved it. And the whole experience to me then was this really fantastic experience where I do know of writers that have had a terrible time because it's not been the same as the book. But a book is a book and a TV show is a TV show.
Right.
And a half-hour sitcom is really difficult to write, and it's a completely different beast. So I loved it. I loved the whole thing. I liked the checks.
So honest. This should be a movie or a show, right? It's very like Emily in Paris. Like I can see this as a serial. Yeah.
Thank you. Who would you see playing the characters?
Okay. What's her name from Younger?
I haven't seen
Sutton Foster. Yes, as Maggie.
Wow.
I don't know about Flick, but
I don't know, but I always want Jane Fonda for Birdie.
yes, Jane Fonda for sure. I love that.
Yeah. Who do you think would be in it? You've read it, right?
I'm in the middle. I just started it. I work full time, so I come home and I can't wait.
I try to make the chapters short in books because I
love
know
that.
Yes,
that's
so
something
so great.
that I'm very aware of, because I find now, being older, my attention span is not as good as it used to be. And with the phones, I find them so distracting. And so I like short chapters because I want to be able to read a chapter before I go to bed. I don't want a long chapter. I want something short so I try write like that.
Imogene, do you know Imogene Waterhouse?
No.
She'd be really good for Flick.
Oh, really?
And she's British.
Molly?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I love hearing about your writing process. It's so fascinating. I didn't realize you plan the whole thing out from
Yeah.
the beginning. So does it ever happen that you're writing and it starts to go somewhere else and you're like, oh, I can't do that, and rein yourself back in?
Sometimes the characters will say and do things that you didn't plan for, because they do get a life of their own.
Yeah.
And you do, because they're strangers at the beginning and then you get to know them. So they do tend to, there'll be stuff there'll be a scene where I'll think they would never have done that. And I can pull that scene out. So it is more fluid than, it's not this extremely rigid plan, but definitely the bones of that book. I don't think I've ever changed an ending. I've added a twist in the middle sometimes that I've thought of, or I've maybe moved it nearer the book, because I don't know. I mean, if a book doesn't grab me, I don't have time to be trying to read a book and I'm not enjoying it. I'll just put the book down and I'll start another book. So I definitely try write books that grab the readers in and keep them going. So you want to keep turning that page. So if I think the pacing's not good and I'm not gripping the reader enough, I will move stuff forward.
You think of the ending first and how to manipulate your characterization so that you do get to the ending.
Yeah, I definitely know the ending. As soon as I've got an idea for a book, the ending will come very quickly. Very, very quickly. I'll know what the ending is, because I'll know what the message of the book is and I'll know how I want that book to end. And I can often see the end scene. I see a book like a movie. When I'm writing, I can see it like I'm watching a film. And it's like, how am I going to get them there? And how am I going to get them there in a way that is going to be interesting for readers and is going to surprise them a bit and is going to make them laugh and make them cry? How am I, you don't want to go in a straight line, do you? You want to kind of go all over. Yeah.
You use keywords along the way.
Keywords in what way?
Words that are general to specific.
I don't know about keywords.
Or use plain words.
I just use words. You kind of stumped me there. I use words.
Yes.
Lots of them, 100,000 of them.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Oh, yes.
So,
hello.
I know you have your process where you mentioned like sitting down for 4 hours and kind of getting that block done. do you ever face, even though you have your whole plan set out, do you ever face writer's block within those
Yes.
sessions? And how do you get over that? Do you have to go take a walk? Do you have to like, how do you
Yeah.
overcome that?
I think writer's block. I think writer's block comes when you lose confidence in what you're doing, and you think that it's not good. I think that's where writer's block comes from. I think that you read what you're writing and you just think, this is not good. You know, people aren't going to like this. And there's I don't know if you know Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote a book called Big Magic, and she said that in your mind you have this perfect unwritten book, and if you never write it, it's perfect. It's brilliant. It's this brilliant book. I'm going to tell everybody about the book I'm going to write. You never write it. Or you can write that book and it's never going to be as good as you want to write that book, but it'll be written and it's a book. And so you do have to keep that in mind. So when I do get writer's block, which is basically a lack of confidence, I've got a lot of author friends, and I tend to send out one of those panicked WhatsApps. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And they will then come to my rescue and say, okay, what's the problem? And then I'll tell them, and they'll be like, you know, they'll give me suggestions, or they'll be like, it's good, or do you want me to read it? I can definitely, I don't think sitting at the laptop helps. I think you're better off going out, go for a walk, I go swimming, I walk the dog, get into nature. But I do think you've got to be resilient, and you've got to rise above that voice on your shoulder. And I still have it. And I've been doing this for 26 years. That voice on my shoulder that says, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I mean, my sister's at the back of the room, and she will tell you every single book I say this. And every time I say it, she says, you always say this. And every writer says it. We are our own worst critic. So anybody that's trying to write a novel, I would say you're all going to feel like that. Yes.
Last question.
What's the strategy behind the first chapter of the book being a teaser towards the end of the story?
So I start this book at the end of the book almost, and then I go back 2 weeks. So you open this book and you see two women in ball gowns running across a deck of a cruise ship, and it's the last night of the cruise, and it's the Dancing with the Stars extravaganza, and there's like a band playing and everyone's drinking cocktails, and these two women are chasing a guy, and they're like, stop, 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 and they're pushing past people, and people are kind of slipping and falling into the pool, and he gets to the end of the ship and they're like, we've got him. And then he jumps. And then I go back 2 weeks earlier. And it's the first time I've ever done that. But this is what I'm saying about you get your ideas. I think I was watching a movie, or I was watching a TV show, and they did it. That's what they did. And then we went back 2 weeks, and I thought, wow, that's a really neat way of jumping into a story. Because like I say, I write really visually. And I remember my editor going, oh, I'm not sure about this. We don't normally do it like that. And I was like, well, why don't we just mix it up? So that's how I got that idea to do it. And I think it worked really well. And I changed the tenses. So when you start, you're in the present tense. And then we go back and it's third person past. And then, and we also have interviews with Maggie throughout the book. And that's her talking about how she fell in love with this guy. And then when we come back at the end and we come back to that point where he's jumped in, we come back to the present tense. Which I think I might have, was it White Lotus or something? I saw it somewhere. Was it White Lotus?
That's what I was thinking.
I think it was White Lotus.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's how they did it. And I thought, you know what? Let's go with that.
Yeah. One final question from me, which is turning in your final draft.
Yes.
Now you're on your 15th book. At what point do you say, this is it? I'm done. No more re-edits. I'm done.
So I write a pretty clean first draft. I'll write a draft, and then I will edit it. And do you know what normally makes me hand it in? The time. I am on a deadline, and it has to be in on a date. And so often, I've had these August 31 deadlines for a few years, and so you're working over summer. And so that deadline comes and I've got to the end of the book and I've changed as much as I can. And then that book just goes in. And then that's it. And then the editor reads it and then it comes back and then you do the edits. But it's normally quite clean. So I don't normally have a lot of edits to do. And one of the interesting things, I don't let anyone read anything until I hand that in. So nobody sees anything. I mean, my editor doesn't see anything. I pitch the idea and then I set off and write it. And so for a whole year, it's just me and my anxiety saying, is this good enough? Until I hand the book in. And then I wait for that email to come. And it's like the longest 48 hours, because that's about how long it is for her to read it. And then it'll come in and you'll be like out at the grocery store or somewhere and you see it coming on your phone and you're like scrolling and I can't see. I ain't got my glasses on and I'm trying to, and then it'll be like, I love this book. And then you just feel this just relief.
Oh, no, I love that. Well, that is all the time we
Thank
have for
you.
this portion. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Thank you. That was so good.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
And feel free to stay because we're going to do the signing. So get the book and get it
Thank you
signed.
to both of you. Congratulations. If you bought the book, great. If you want to buy it for a friend, even better. Read it again. Thank you both for taking the time. Thank you all for coming out. And yeah, I'm going to move some of the chairs once we wrap up here. And if you wanted to buy a book, form a line, it will help the process. Thank you.